Hello guys, and welcome to Bushcraft Camp Update 6. The series is really starting to develop now. I've had many, fantastic feedback from you guys and some really good comments on the previous camp update videos. So I'd just like to say firstly, thank you very much for all your support, and I'm really grateful for all your feedback. I've learned so many things from just the comments that you guys are saying, so please do keep them coming. You join me here in about middle of April. Temperatures are starting to warm up now. It's still quite slow. We've had a pretty rainy Easter kind of period so far. It's not been amazing weather. Traditionally in the UK we usually have a good 2-week spell of sunshine in April, but it's not happened yet. So temperatures are still sort of hovering around single figures, about 8, 9 degrees in the day. So not freezing obviously, but not as warm either. Those of you who are new and you're watching this video for the first time and you'd like to get an understanding of what these videos are about, firstly they are just me out in the my name's Mike, and it's just these videos are mostly about me in the outdoors, just filming myself building a camp really. It's almost, rather than the kind of survival, got to build a really cool sort of fort, which some of you have called it. It does look a bit like a fort. It's actually more for me to just go out there, and it's kind of like a childish thing of just building a camp in the woods really. That's probably got a bit out of hand, but I'm enjoying it nevertheless. So if you'd like to see the bushcraft videos that I've done in the past, I'll pop a link just up here in the corner of your screen, and you can click that, and that will take you to Bushcraft Camp Update 1, 2, 3, 4, all the previous bushcraft, how my camps developed really, and you can start right from the beginning when I did the very first shelter. Started to come along now. In the previous Camp Update video, I was focusing on the secondary shelter. I built a secondary shelter in my camp, and I hope to eventually get a bed built there as well in that shelter. So plan of action for today is, I have to admit guys, I'm quite excited about this camp update. I have been waiting for this for a while. I've had a number of you asking about it, but today finally is the day for the fire pit. The plan is, it's quite peaty here, so I'm going to explain a couple of things that I brought. Well, one thing that I brought along with me that you would not naturally find in the woodlands, but it's more for safety, and I want to care for the environment, so I will explain why I bought it and why I am using it a little bit later. But I've had some great feedback from you guys about different types of fire pits or pit fires, whatever you want to call them, and how to kind of build them, and different ideas. Some of you have said about doing a Swedish fire torch, which is great. I've seen them, they're a fantastic idea. However, I guess they're more of a kind of temporary solution. They are a really good idea, and actually they've really kicked off. I've started to see them in garden centres and everything now. So if you haven't seen a Swedish fire torch, go and check them out. I'm sure there's some videos out there. I will eventually get around to making one myself, but they are kind of more temporary. Because this camp is a bit more of a permanent camp, I have got permission and everything to camp here. It's on private land. All the wood I'm using is deadfall, by the way, before everyone asks. And so that was a great suggestion from some of you, but I'm not going to go for that one. I've had the Dakota fire pit, or Dakota fire hole suggestion, which is a really cool idea. I love the look of it, but again, I'll explain later why I'm not kind of going for that one. I've decided, and from some of you who've given me some feedback as well, to go for just a kind of traditional, just general pit fire with, I've managed to find some bits of masonry really, I guess, about 500 yards away, kind of bits of stone mixed up with concrete and masonry, and building they must have been building somewhere about 500 yards away. So I just picked up all that, I just found it there, and I'm going to use that as kind of the surrounding of my fire to keep the heat in basically, and also to prevent sparks and flames from spreading and damaging the woodland any further. I am only going to go for one fire pit. A couple of you have suggested 2 next to each shelter, but I think I don't want to kind of crowd the space too much in front of me here, so I'm just going to go for the one fire pit. First thing I need to do is sweep the area clean, and then I need to kind of dig. I plan to dig a sort of small hole about half a foot deep really, half a foot to a foot deep, and the first thing I need to do really is make myself a makeshift spade. Let's take a look. Okay, so all I've done is just to make a makeshift spade. It's just a small sort of log about, I don't know, 2 feet long, and I've just shaved off a little bit of a flat edge there to act as the spade, which is just basically going to help me dig. I don't usually go any shorter than 2 foot long for a sort of digging spade, because it gives me enough leverage to have a hand on the top and a hand on the bottom, and that way I can pull with this arm and push with the top arm, and it just helps your energy efficiency really when digging a hole. So I'm going to clear a little area now just in the middle of the camp and start digging. Okay, so what I've done is I've dug around the perimeter of the pit, basically. I've gone down probably about 6 inches deep. The reason being is because the top layer of the soil here where I am is very peaty, which is, for those that don't know, peat is basically like partially decomposing, mainly moss and things like that. And they use it around the world. They actually use it for fires and things like that. You can have a peat fire. Hence why this is, why I'm being I need to be safe about this. But they use peat fires around the world, and it's basically partially decomposing plant matter and moss, and it can dry out. It can go very, very dry, and then it becomes flammable. And that's what many people don't realise when they're out in the woodland, especially woodland that's very dense, where it's very mossy. That moss, generally when it partially decomposes, will turn the ground and the soil into peat, which over time can dry out, and it can become a potential fire hazard. So what I've done is, because I know the area, I've dug down about 6 inches, and actually there's some gravel underneath that peat layer, and you can see here from these big stones that I'm now down to the gravel layer, so I know it's a lot safer, and I can actually feel that when I'm digging, I can feel the spade, the makeshift spade, hitting the stone. So I know I've gone down to the right level. Any roots that were kind of in this area I've cleared out the way, again just to be safe, but I feel now that I'm at a safe depth. I've cleared most of the peat away from this area, and the bit that I was telling you about earlier, which is what I brought from home, I'm now going to explain to you what I brought and why. Okay, so what I've brought from basically where I found in a scrapyard is some metal, literally a square sheet of metal. There's 2 reasons why I want to use this, guys. The first reason is for safety reasons. I want to place this at the base of my fire pit, and that way any smouldering embers and ash, when I've had a long fire overnight, will not penetrate this and go into the ground, and then into the tree roots, into the peat, another area of peat layer, which could then actually cause a fire. Peat, when it burns, can actually burn and smoulder for a very long time, and it can actually spread throughout the forest, throughout winter, underground without you knowing about it, and a fire can actually start up, many hundreds of meters away from where that peat originally burned. So, it's a safety thing, guys, really, for me, and I want to care and look after the environment. So by using this, it's just going to help prevent most of those hot smouldering embers from a long-term fire, not so much a short-term fire for a day trip, but those long overnight fires where they're burning for a while. This can collect the ash and embers and stop them penetrating through to the ground and, catching the ground alight underneath me. That's the first reason. The second reason I'm using it is because it actually acts as basically a heat reflector. So it stops all that wasted heat and energy from the fire going into the ground, those embers and heat going into the ground, and punches that heat back up through the fire, which in turn basically makes a more efficient fire, a hotter fire. It will keep the embers burning for longer, and it will get me a much hotter bed of embers. So they're the kind of 2 reasons I'm using this sheet of metal. Again, it's just my way of doing things, guys. Each to their own. Everyone's got their own opinion. This is just my way of, A, looking after my environment, but B, being able to have more of a long-term fire and create something that's safe. So I'm going to place this down on top of the gravel layer that I've now got down to, and then I've got some of that masonry that I was on about, which I'll then place around the edges to protect the fire a little bit more, and again get that heat efficiency of my fire pointed towards maybe my shelters. Okay, so you might be able to see around the edge of where my sheet will be, the metal sheet, I've actually dug a small trench. And again, I'll show you why. The metal sheet sits on top like that, the trench is then around it. I can then get the big kind of flat masonry stones that I found and just place these down the edge like that, again, so that I know that my fire is going to be completely contained. That's pretty secure. You can see from the kind of masonry blocks around the outside, there's not much kind of soil getting in there. What I'll do now is I'll backfill this soil just to the edge of the stone, and then later on, possibly not today but another day, I can get a few more of those masonry blocks if I can find them and just stack it up a little bit higher. So just time to backfill the fire pit and then I can get the fire going. Well, as you can see, the fire is really going now. The pit I'm really chuffed with. I can feel the heat off that metal sheet underneath. I can feel the heat bouncing back up, and those stones are keeping it really contained. Everything's contained, it's all under control. It's a very efficient fire. I'm very pleased with it. Hope you guys are pleased with it too. I know a lot of you have been joining me on this adventure since Bushcraft Camp Update 1, so hopefully you guys approve. And yeah, the next stage I think will be some sort of cooking system here, and then getting the bed system laid up as well. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Thanks for all your feedback, all your comments and everything. Please give me some feedback on what sort of cooking system I can use. I've got a few ideas in my mind, and any ideas on bed sleep systems in the shelters as well. Unfortunately, I've already eaten today. I didn't bring any sausages along, but I'm sure if I had some, they would be tasting really good on this fire.